Ray Lee with Speedboat Magazine, and we are here with our very first episode of this podcast that is called Boats and Bros. We have our host online with us. We have Myrick Coil. How are you, Myrick?
Doing good, Ray. Just chilling here in Missouri, beginning of the year and getting everybody rolling, ready for the warm weather.
Yeah, right. So this is basically our first episode, and we hope this takes off and hope you all like it. But right now we're going to talk to Myrick about how he got into this entire industry and how he came to the position that he is. He is a world champion offshore racer with world champion and national championships under his belt. He's been doing this for a very long time. He is the lead dude at Performance Boat Center there in Osage Beach, Lake of the Ozarks. And when it comes to experience with boats, there's nobody like Myrick. So how did you get into this, Myrick?
Well, actually, I went to an event, and at this event, there was a lot of cool boats, and it was at Lake of the Ozarks. Just didn't really realize how cool the boats were out there in the world. So at that point, looked into getting into it, and that's how it all started. And yeah, about through the years, I mean, I want people to know in this podcast, it's not going to be all about me. I want everybody to understand that it's going to be about boating and bros. Like through all the 25 years that I've been doing this, I've met a lot of cool people, from customers to other racers, mechanics, people that made me who I am, or whose knowledge I've stole, or whose knowledge I've absorbed and made it all work. A lot of this stuff isn't in a book, so it takes experience to figure it out. But came from Illinois, moved to Lake of the Ozarks, and had a background in mechanical kind of things like swimming pools and grain elevators. And when I was in college, I worked at a motorcycle shop in Peoria Heights, Illinois, for Gray Boy Motorsports. And when I did that, I got to be around a lot of jet skis, Sea-Doos, things like that. But then my parents had bought a lake house at Lake of the Ozarks, and it actually opened it up for me to look and see what was out there in the performance boat world, due to the fact it's Lake of the Ozarks, and there's a lot of cool things that happen here. So went to tech school, started at a little shop called Advanced Marine. Steve Wallace and Matt Patterson were the two people that took me under their wing. Steve took me under his wing a little bit more. He was more of the hands-on guy that was in the shop all the time. Matt was answering the phones and talked to the customer more. So Steve and I, we're out on the water or testing boats and things like that. And from there, I got my first taste of, catamarans. There was a shop catamaran that Murphy Loveridge owned that he let Steve test and tune on and try all kinds of things. And the boat, has been in the shootout for years and years. So after I had gotten my experience there, a couple of customers at Advanced Marine let me run their boat in the shootout. I think the first one I ever ran was Kevin Nowak's 42 fountain, and it had 500 HPs in it. I think my first pass was 77 miles an hour. So it's came a long way. Fastest pass I've ever done in the shootout now is 206 or 208. So beat it by 125, 130 miles an hour. But it was in a lot different boat, and it was amazing the first time I'd ever done the shootout to feel the difference when you put a helmet on and you take the sound away, and then you look to your right. It was at the shootout when it was at the 21-mile marker, and see a row of boats. We're like, holy crap, all these people are watching me, and I'm on TV and all this. So it was a neat experience at that point. After that, Dave Scott came along, gave me the opportunity to go racing full time. He had an Anheuser-Busch sponsorship lined up, and we were going to go racing for years at that point. So had to break up with Advanced Marine. Was a tough thing to do since they were my guys, and there was a little hard feelings at first, but now I talk to them and they're like, you did the right thing. And, but it was a little emotional because Steve had taken care of me so well. But, in my mid-20s at this time, and early to mid-20s, and was able to go racing full-time with the Anheuser-Busch sponsored team. So it was get to go do as many as 16 events a year for quite a while. And it was fun. So all the things that I learned from either Dave or from the people that Dave had around, Johnny Tomlinson, buying boats from Randy Sism, buying boats from Skater. So meeting Pete. We had crew members, Lucky Bodenbach, David McIntyre, working with Gary Stray, working with Chris Hanley, people like this, people that are still in the sport, but at the time they were a lot more knowledgeable than me. So they would share their experiences through the years, and I'd absorb it and try to, take either as a grain of salt or, man, that was really important what he just told me. And I had no idea about that. I had a lot of conversations with Gary Stray like that when we were working with boats, and it just kind of rolls off his tongue, which I think I noticed a lot of the guys at the shop with me, especially the newcomers, when I'm telling a story, I'll think of it's a story that, it's no big deal, but they're like, oh my gosh, that's neat. He did that, and I did, and it was happened to be whether I lucked into it or whether, however it worked, to be able to go in so many boats so fast, obviously it's a trust thing, because a lot of guys, when they have boats that are this fast, they might not necessarily want to even drive them, because they know the not only the experience that it takes to be able to handle it, the risk that it takes, but then, these guys, some of these guys, are worth tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. And, they feel they've got a lot to live for, which, we all have a lot to live for, but, some have a little bit, when I was in my early 20s, like, you didn't want me driving your boat at that point because there was no fear. But now when I think about it, there's, if you don't have fear, I don't want you in the boat with me, because we're going to crash, because they're that on the edge when it comes to them. But through all the Anheuser-Busch years, we had the Naughty Girl, which was the first one. We had the Budweiser boat. We had the Bacardi Silver, Bud Select, Bud Light, Naughty Marine. I don't know how many championships we won. I think every time we went to Key West, it felt like we won. In Dave's boats. I actually had a list, and it was so many. It's like we had a 36 open skater, 46 rider skater, 36 rider skater, 42 MTI, 44 MTI, 44 MTI turbine, 50 Mystic. So, there was some events where we were going to a shootout and we had 3 boats pulling out of the shop at 5 o'clock in the morning, Wow. And just to take one of these boats, because they're not like the QC4Vs are today, to where you can pull up the dock, the transmission nice and smooth and slide it in there. It's like, let's tow it there because it'll blow up because they're so on the ragged edge. We've designed this to go a mile, not 10 miles. So right. It's pretty neat. So through all of that Performance Boat Center, through the Naughty Marine career, with Dave Scott, it was cool. I actually felt like I was losing my skill as a boat mechanic when I was working there, because I worked on 3 or 4 boats. So,
The same three or four boats.
yeah, the same 3 or 4. So
Yeah.
I knew everything there was to know about them. But then, you know, an inline 6 Verado came out while I was doing that. And I'm like, whoa, man, that's cool. You know, and we had a pontoon boat or something, but you never had to work on them, you know? So it was one of those things to where I felt like I was falling a little bit behind. And that's one thing about, you know, when you leave your broad career as a boat mechanic and become a boat mechanic for a race team, you're only going to work on 1 or 2 boats. It's not like you have, you know, 100 of them lined up. So it kind of feels like you lose a little bit of the broad knowledge, which in my opinion, nowadays for me, that's the broad knowledge is what, you know, pays my bills. So,
Sure.
because more people come to Performance Boat Center hoping to fix this problem or find this setup issue or something like that than actually, you know, hey, this thing runs great. You know, let's try to make it go faster. That's not always the story. I mean, every once in a while, but most of the time it's like, hey, man, this thing, it's got a porpoise at 70 miles an hour. What are we going to do about it? You know, it's that kind of thing. So, I mean, do it every day. So,
well, with that, Myrick, I mean, how did you earn Dave Scott's trust to handle those boats? Dave Scott being a veteran offshore racer and team owner of all those teams that you had mentioned. How did you come to earn Dave's trust for you getting into his $1 million boats?
Yeah, well, it was time. It took time, that's for sure. I remember even when I was working at Advance and being green at it, they would give me a 3,000 RPM limit because they knew that I was going to go out and, you know, hold this thing wide open and see what it'd do. I remember for a long time with it was 114 mile per hour. My top speed, it was a triple engine, triple 300 Pro Max 32 skater with the Silver Mariner engines on it. I think it was called Stepping Out was the name of the boat. And the fastest I had ever gotten it was 114. And that was my record for a long time, 114 miles an hour. But then started working for Dave. And, you know, it goes from Dave was he's a really nice guy. He's a gentleman, but he's also a micromanager and really likes to know exactly what's going on. We'd have a phone call 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you know, pretty much every day about what's going on. And it was a learning curve for me to a lot of it had to do with just logistics. So for example, hey, I'm over here. It's going to take me an hour to drive over there. How about you bring the boat over? You got it, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I got it, you know? So there you go, come bring it over, pull it in the slip. Hey, that was way easier than me coming all the way over there and figuring it out. And, you know, of course, I'm in the boat sweating, and as far as like not sweating, like physically sweating, but freaking out because, I mean, I'm driving $1 million whip here, you know, and this thing, I mean, I screw up, I'm done, you know, that kind of stuff. So you don't, and I feel the same way with customers' boats now. Obviously, it's gotten a lot better because, you know, I've done it so many times, but, yeah, it was just time. And, actually a lot of it was Johnny's, approval. So right in the back seat, during testing. So happened to be 2 of our, popular boats at the time. And an unlimited class was a 46 Skater, which was a 4-seat cockpit configuration. And then, the 50 Mystic, which was a 4-seat, cockpit configuration. So a lot of the time it was like, you know, these guys are capable of working on the boat, but that was my job. So when we left or when we went to test, it was like, Myrick, grab your tool bag, hop in the back. And I'd get in there and, you know, strap in and do the testing because we were dealing with, you know, 11,000, 12,000 pound boats that had around 3,000 horsepower. So it's not like 170, 180 pound dude with his tool bag in the back is going to totally screw up the setup. They might feel me there, but it's not like a stock boat where you can move 25, 50 pounds around. So after doing that enough and then, you know, just running with, somebody to the shootout or from the shootout, you know, and then, hey, he did a pretty good job. You know, what do you think about, giving him a chance? Yeah. So that's kind of how it worked out with my first driving gig. I think it was a Bacardi Silver boat, 2006 42 MTI sponsored by Mercury Racing. It started off the season with SBI just to test the boat out, and Chris Hanley was in the boat with Johnny. I think Dave went in the boat a little bit, but then Dave and Chris Hanley had a little bit of a falling out, and so they're like, "Myrick, you wanna drive this thing?" And it was Sarasota. I was like, "Absolutely, I want to." So went through testing with Johnny. It was the biggest eye-opening experience I've ever had, because I was dumb to the fact that I didn't know the capabilities of the boats. And at the time in 2006, I mean, that boat would still be competitive in the Supercat class, that particular style of 42 MTI. I mean, it's the same, exactly the same setup as Pro Floors has. Obviously, they've refined it and worked on it for however many years, 15 years. But at the time, I mean, we were flying. Entered that was a super boat, and that was my first official race. And we actually entered unlimited because the Supercat rules in that class did not fit in the SBI Supercat. It was either, RPMs or different heads. There's some different rules. So there was no other Supercats there, but there was unlimited. So we entered, and obviously I thought, oh man, there's all these supercharged boats here, and they got so much more power than us. And I thought we were going to get killed. And we lapped most of the field, and it was mind blowing to me. And it was one of those 100-mile races like we used to do. I mean, a lot of the times we're 70, 80-mile races anymore, but they used to be at least 100 with SBI. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe these guys do this. And then that was the beginning of my racing career. Sarasota just happened to be that my girlfriend, now wife, Missy, was there, which is pretty cool. So she had known I was into boats, or working on boats, but she had never been to a race. And then the first race that she goes to is one that I race in, and we win. And then we went up north to started working our way around. But I mean, I could go on and on about that. Anyway, so
what was the conversation like between you and Johnny Tomlinson in the cockpit together for the first time in your first race?
Okay, so we had known each other for probably 4 or 5 years. Me being starting at the lowest ranks, basically boat washer / mechanic, and then Jack Hammer had given me some opportunities to do some things on the boat, and he'd go, "Hey man, pretty nice job." I remember it was silly. It's like, "Hey, go shorten this bolt," and then you're working in there, and you got the tool shop in the back of the rig, and I'm going to hand this thing over. It's going to look polished and brand new. And it's like the things that you do is like, finally I get a chance to work on it. I'm going to show them what I can do. And Jack Hammer was a cool dude. And so was Gary Brinker. They always took me under their wing and let me help out. But our conversation was mostly mechanical things. You feel that, what that sound, or, what do you think about this? And that's how Johnny and I always really gelled in the boat, from what I can tell, is I really think mechanics have an advantage on trying to get the setup right, or really thinking about the boat. I couldn't imagine getting in the boat and not knowing what I know, and then going out there and trying to do it, because I feel like I would be giving something up against the next guy beside of me. So conversation was, hey, if I can remember correctly, so Saturday was testing, and it was hot, really hot, Sarasota 4th of July weekend, and going around testing, and man, I was like, man, this is cool. I'm, Myrick Coil riding around in the Bacardi Silver Supercat with Johnny Tomlinson, the best there ever was. And he goes, okay, you ready to go? Or that way is like his words are like, what do you think about that? And I'm like, this is cool. He goes, okay, you ready to go to the next level? And I'm like, okay, there's another level, and he goes, oh yeah. And so then it's just, instead of, like keeping it trimmed in a little bit, and, when you come off the wave lifting on the throttle, it's like leave it neutral and just hold it, and the boat it still goes straight most of the time, but it's unbelievable how much faster the boat was capable of. I mean, coming in on its side, and you think, oh my gosh, I think we're going to die, every time. But then after a while, you're like, man, it corrects itself. And, I do this and it settles back down and we keep going. And, so that was, I mean, I couldn't have gotten any luckier with getting in the boat with a master like that,
Yeah.
I think of like, Steve Curtis has told me a story about he was going across, he was young, like 16 or no, it was Gary Stray and Steve Curtis in a boat together. And Gary Stray was like 15 or 16. And, Steve like was really ripping the boat. And it was just like basically to go from where the race had ended. And Gary was just a crew member or something like that. And he had taken him to like where the prizes were. But Steve like ripped it. And Gary said, I looked over at him. I thought, oh, my mom's going to kill you when I'm dead, and it's funny. That's kind of the feeling that I had. Like, I can't believe that we're doing this, and I've been lucky. I was with Bob Morgan in the boat, when we were running that 46 Skater. Yeah. I've been with, Alvin Heathman was throttling in one of the boats. So I've sat with, quite a few people, I mean, a handful. Sure. that are really good. And you just get to see the difference, the different nuances or different things these guys do. So, yeah. So, I mean, it was cool. And then the rest of the season goes on and on. We got another win. We flipped the boat, so that was a really shitty deal.
What's that like as a new racer to turn a boat?
It's hard. It's like, oh, I'm done. I mean, I literally think that I'm sitting in the tunnel of the boat and Johnny's like, I don't know if he has his arm around me, but he's consoling me like, it's not your fault, man. I took you in there so hot. I was like, yeah, but we're upside down and Dave's in the helicopter looking down at us, and he was in a helicopter. I'm literally like soaked, like after the fact that like I lived. Yeah. Holy shit. I really feel bad now. There's divers like swim into the boat and you're thinking, man, this thing was like perfect when we put it in the water and now it's destroyed. Like the sides blown in, the engines are all hydraulic, hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage. And basically I thought I was done. I didn't think I'd ever get another chance, but, Johnny went to bat for me with Dave, and I don't think he took a lot of persuading, but he basically went to him and said, hey, it's not his fault. This thing, awesome. The way we have it set up, it hooks at a certain point and we were out of control, trying to catch reliable carriers. And it just happened to be caught a little bump in this turn and just dumped it. So, so got lucky there.
Is it as scary as it seems? Like for us spectators?
Yeah, so it goes dark really quick. So it happened to be in Orange Beach, Alabama. And when we were in Orange Beach, Alabama, the water there's turbidity in the water. So it's pretty cloudy. We do have like a little, like maybe a 3-inch window in the escape hatch. So you have light to go towards. I remember hanging upside down. And our intercoms are still working like now. Yeah. And you're breathing hard because you're spent like getting this thing around the course and it's hot. Now you're hanging upside down and Johnny's like, oxygen. Cause like, okay, get my regulator. It's tucked in my vest right here. So get it in my mouth. And, the water's starting to fill up, around your head and you're hanging upside down and then you pull your seatbelt and it just drills you against the ceiling. So your neck and the 42 MTI at the time, wasn't the nicest for trying to get out because the escape hatch was behind the seats instead of up front, which we've really gotten rid of a lot of dashes and tried to open the cockpit up a lot. But basically falling into the water, salt water in your eyes, salt water, and, actually I'm going to tell a story on Johnny. We're like, I could feel him going through the seats to get in the back and he gets in the back. So I'm like, okay, he's cool. and our intercom stopped working at that point because, you know, you're ripping cords out and everything to basically get out of there. And he's in the back seat, and he's like on the bottom hatch, the hatch he's standing on, like, to like get out that way. So he's disoriented because he spun around, and I'm like, I hit him in the helmet, and I go like this, and he goes, you know, he kind of hits himself in the head, and then he opens the escape hatch. And my perspective, I'm looking out the escape hatch that just opened, and I can see the divers, the angels coming out of the helicopter hitting the water. And, you know, I was like, okay, well, we lived, but it was a upsetting deal. I remember the start of the next race was Corpus Christi, and I was scared shitless, man. I mean, it was a huge fleet, and they started us on a short straightaway, and we had gotten second in qualifying to CRC, and CRC was so fast back then. I mean, they were the ones to beat them and reliable carriers and us. And man, we got to that first turn, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to turn this thing. We go through like 10 rooster tails, you know, because everybody else had already turned, and I'm still going straight, like, we're going to die. And that's what I'm thinking the whole time, like literally. And finally we like come to the end, and there's a boat right beside us, and I yank the wheel to the left, and we come out, and we're like, oh, come on. It's like, man, that was terrible. And we're like, we're in last place, you know? And Johnny's like, okay, we're just going to work our way up. And it's a Corpus Christi. It was a big course, but it wasn't real flat, but there was a section that was flat, and we got going. We picked off a boat or two. Starting to calm down a little bit, and then we blow a drive, and I'm like, whoo, man, hell yeah. You know, man, I don't know about this boat racing stuff so much, you know. But you know, then it went on, and you get a little bit of gap between the bad experiences, and you get a win, or you get you have an experience that wasn't like, I'm going to die the whole time, or crash. I say die, but I mean, it's always in your head. You're like, I volunteered for this, you know, and obviously at the time I wasn't getting paid. I'm just, you want me in there? I'll get in there, you know?
Yeah.
So, that kind of thing. So that was the first year racing for me. I guess however long ago it was, I think that was 2005 or 2006. So long time ago.
Yeah. So you earned that driver position, and then you've kind of never let the boat racing out of your system, right? Yeah. So, went for a couple more years. I mean, just testing and stuff like that. Never really had the Supercat opportunity again, just due to the fact that we got out of that class. We've went back, and Dave really wanted to focus on the Unlimited, and then we got Bud Light as a sponsor, and we had that 50 Mystic and Sterling Power, and man, we were hard to beat. As long as we didn't break, Johnny and them would. Johnny, whether it was Johnny and Dave or Johnny and Mike Siebold, I was always the crew chief on the headsets with them. And there'd be times where I'd be like, you guys got 45 seconds on them. You know, you might want to let up a little bit. And, you know, then they go, okay, just let me know when they get to 30. And he'd calm it down, and they'd get to 30, and goes, okay, I'm going to step it up, you know, and the next thing I'd know, I'd be running the stopwatch. I go, you're back at 45 seconds on them. So it was an unbelievable machine, and Dave put together a team that was awesome with all of our guys. From Johnny's guys from the Miami to all the guys that Dave had go to the race with us. Clinton Milas was a big part of it. Mike Powell. He's still on my team. Been with him for a long time. Mike Powell. He's been on all kinds of teams. We almost laugh about it, 'cause he's probably got more world championships, and actually he might just be the rig master and keep track of everything in the rig. But I mean, as far as teams and teammates and stuff like that, he's got it going on. Yeah. No, Mike's cool. Now, when you say my team, you're talking about, of course, MCon Racing with Tyler Miller, team owner and throttleman, and you guys just brought on a big new sponsor in Monster Energy. Talk about that.
Yeah. So, I never when I first started talking to Tyler about boat racing, did I think that, it had to be 7 or 8 years ago he started talking to me about it. And never did I think that would I have been in the boat with him, or would he have went into Supercat? I know that he had talked about it, but if somebody doesn't come to you straight up and say, hey, I'm going Supercat racing, I'm going to spend a lot of money and I want to compete. If you just try to take it as like, hey, what's it like to race Supercat, or what boats would you buy? You kind of think about, I don't know, I don't have that kind of money. I'm just the guy that knows how to work on them and knows how to drive them. So, through all those years, Tyler and Lindsay and the whole crew at MCon have stepped up their game as far as not only building superb boats, having unbelievable team members, having, all of this equipment that it takes to go to races. Us at Performance Boat Center try to back them as good as possible. Jake Licklider has been our crew chief, and he works his butt off. Sydney, his wife, has become one of their apparel people that really takes care of everything and is make sure that we're all taken care of. So it's a really great deal at the races to be part of the MCon team. And now that Monster Energy has came to them and wants to sponsor them, I think it was a 2-year deal that they've inked up. They put a little bit of a decal on the Supercat at the Key West races, and then announced the fact that they're going to, fully support the Class 1 boat here in the 2023 season, which I'm nervous as hell. Talked to Tyler today, and I'm not necessarily nervous about upholding sponsorship obligations as far as being nice to people and doing appearances and stuff like that. I'm nervous about being on top of the podium with them guys that have more experience in that class than me. So hopefully Tyler and I can get in that boat and get the feel of things and let it eat.
Well, you guys have an undeniable chemistry between one another. I mean, you guys just coming off of a world championship, national championship with Team MCon racing together, and now you'll be campaigning 2 boats with that team, and you being the boat guy, as you say, and Tyler is the data guy, correct?
Oh yeah, Mr. Spreadsheet. So no, I mean, and it works. I mean, it's amazing when he'll break down a course and through certain sections, and when you start to break it down and look at how much accelerating you have to do rather than your top speed that you're going to be running, you have to make the decision on being the quickest person around the course, not the fastest person around the course. So and not only this propeller did this drive height, this weight. I mean, we're trying, the wind was blowing this direction, the temperature was this. It's amazing the amount of math that goes into it. And with his job and his career that he does with bidding, I don't know exactly how many miles of pipe they run in a year, but I've heard him say if I could save 1 cent per foot on that, it's millions, so wow. It's a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of looking at upcoming events and making sure that you have the right equipment, the right team, and and you're there in the end. So national championship, hardest thing to get in my opinion. World championship is hard because it's a three race venue in Key West, but national championship, I mean, from the time we start racing next month, we go to Marathon, then we go to Cojl, and then you go to Sarasota, and you go to Michigan, you go all over the country. I mean, there's so many risk factors. Even if I'm at home in bed and Mike and Dave and Craig and all those guys are out on the road with Tyler and Lindsay's equipment, just, trying to get there. So, and it's, it's basically like you're pulling all these boats go on tilt. So over width, turn them like that. They're, they're legal at that point. So, it's a nightmare. So that's one of the things that we really, are lucky to have is good team, good people that take care of us. I mean, my wife, his wife, I mean, they're like our number one fans. We got inducted into the, APBA Offshore Hall of Champions not too long ago, and we were in Seattle, and it was neat to go out there with just the wives and do this thing, because it's normally there's a big team, which that's what it takes for us to get the Hall of Champions. It takes that whole team, but to go out to Seattle for a one night event doesn't make sense to bring the whole team for it.
Sure.
And it's neat to see Missy and see Lindsay, how much she loves Tyler, and see how proud they are of their two dummies that can go out there and get a boat around a buoy, I guess.
No, it's great. And then, like you said, that US1 moniker, I mean, that's no small feat.
I remember seeing it and not even knowing what it meant. I remember I think it was on Stuart Hames boats. He used to the recovery boats.
Yeah.
They used to always have US1 on the front, even though it was a pleasure boat. But the reason he put it on there is because he was the national champion of Supercat class at the time. So, you're going to use that thing, use it up. I mean, I remember when Rusty and I got stock national champions, a couple of years ago. I don't know what year it was. I think it was 19 or something like that. But I was like, there's guys that are like, oh, it's bad luck. I was like, bullshit. I'm putting that thing on there now. I mean, can we get one printed? I'm like, S21? No, I want S1. That way, people know that as of this year, I'm the one to beat. So, and that's the way I look at it in the Supercat class too. I know Billy Moff always says, "Oh, that's bad luck." I can't talk like him, but that's bad luck to put that on your boat. Blah blah blah. I'm like, whatever. So,
Myrick, for the people that don't understand the full meaning of US1, explain that to them.
Yeah. So it's like in motorcraft, it'd be the number one plate. So it's basically the way of telling who won the national championship last year for the Supercat class. U.S. meaning we are from the U.S. and won. When Pro Floors did it, it's NZ1. So you know that the national champion is from New Zealand. So
big honor.
we get to run that baby again this year. So 2 years back to back with
That's
the
awesome.
national champion. Yeah.
And so
got it a few times. I think 3 times with the Jimmy John's boat with the boat behind you in the picture, the Freaky Fast boat. We did that one. Yeah, we did that one. I think 3 times. So, I mean,
that's awesome.
You have a 388 skater. You can do some magic in the Supercat class.
Being driver for both MCon Monster Energy teams, you also run the Performance Boat Center FASS Fuel Systems Superstock boat, which you just mentioned, with your throttleman and co-teammate at Performance Boat Center, Rusty Williams.
Yeah, Mark and Brett said, hey, we have this 32, I think it was 2017 maybe. I wrote it down. I'm so bad with years and birthdays, so if I forget your birthday, I'm sorry. Thank goodness for Facebook to tell me. So it says, I looked it up, 32 auto alert. Yeah, so our 2019. So like 30 days before the season starts, we had purchased a 32 race to go and to build and sell for, a customer or whoever wants to do it. And, came down to, 30 days before the race. And, Mark comes to me and says, "Hey, you think we could do good in this class?" I'm like, "I don't know. I've never raced it. I know there's a lot of boats in the class." And, turned out, gave it to Andy and he started rigging on it. And, the first time that we were ever in the boat together, Rusty and I, was at Cojl Beach in the testing, just because we were working on the Supercat so much, the Jimmy John's MTI at the time. And,
that was Rusty's first race, correct?
Rusty's first race. It was so rough. I'm throttling, his air bottle. There's so many funny stories about that race. I mean, we were shitting bricks. It's like you look out the window and you can't see the beach because the waves are so big, and you're just out there like a cork bobbing around. And it's like, we got third, I think. And it was just like battle of attrition. I remember looking in the rearview camera and the cowlings hanging on sideways, and I don't know if we'd stuffed it or not, but whenever you're running in Cojl Beach and you're running along the beach, it's not so bad. But then you take that right hander by the pier and head out. It is like you're going into a jump that is, and you're not going fast enough to like get the boat level and fly over it. It's terrible. You think you're going to crash every time, but Rusty was the driver at that time, and we went to that race. I don't know if we raced again with me throttling, but we were testing back at the lake, and he came up. It came up to where we were looking for a couple more mile an hour, and you really got to keep the boat on a bubble, is the way I consider it in my mind. But you really have to keep it at this fine line. You're almost driving it like a V bottom that you're trying to keep out of a chine walk. And, I knew that Rusty wanted the throttle seat, and I was reluctant to give it up because, I know that he's unbelievable in a boat, and he is unbelievable in a boat. But I was reluctant to give it up just because he was inexperienced in a race, and he's in control. All I get to do is turn the wheel at that point, and I can slow it down, of course, and hey, what the fuck are you doing? Kind of like that kind of thing. Yeah. But, I can, we were testing, and I'm in the throttle seat, and I go, "Try this." So I'm sitting in the throttle seat with the throttles like this, drive the boat to keep it out of this gyration. He goes, "Here, just let me throttle." He got over there, and he hasn't been in the driver's seat since that one test time. So it's not that I don't like throttling, but I'm a better driver at in a boat than I am a throttle man. So the super stock boat is I can't say what it's like in a class 1 boat, but I feel like I can drive that Supercat around anything after I get out of the super stock boat, just because of the differences in the 4,900 pound boat versus a 9,500 pound boat. Sure. The Skags being this big, versus this big, and it's just all the stuff that makes a boat turn and go straight, and all that is limited in the stock class. I mean, you're down to 600 horsepower instead of 1,600 horsepower. So
this podcast episode has been brought to you by Performance Boat Center. What all do you guys do there?
We do everything. We'll sell you one. We'll detail one. We'll work on it. We'll do, we like to work on Mercury products, but we'll do everything from custom power to the re-rig of a boat, or repowering your existing boat. But yeah, so we'll broker your boat that you want to sell. We'll sell you a boat. We'll transport a boat. We'll even work on it in South Florida. We have a place there in Hollywood, Florida, so just north of Fort Lauderdale a little bit. So awesome. We can take care of you at Performance Boat Center.
PerformanceBoatCenter.com for all your needs in Lake of the Ozarks and South Florida. So are you concerned about, you've got a full plate with 3 race boats that you're going to be campaigning throughout the entire season.
Yeah. I mean, it's what I'm really happy about is there's not a lot, but multiple races that not all 3 boats will be at. So, for example, Marathon, 2 boats, Cojl 3, but Sheboygan 2, Lake of the Ozarks 2, so it sounds like a lot. The only days that I don't know if I dread it is if it's rough and hot, because that's what gets you. Rough gets you alone. I mean, it can be cold and rough and you'd be miserable after a race. You're sore, neck hurts. As a driver, I notice, I'll ask like Rusty or Tyler, I was like, man, does your back hurt? Like, back here and they're like, no, not so much. It's more my neck. And I think to myself, why do I hurt so much more? But my arms are out. They're tight up against them, and they got handles really close. Not discrediting what they do. It's just a totally different seating position versus tight with the throttles right by their leg and the handle on their left, and they're kind of bracing themselves. My bracing thing is moving, and you're still turning it and all that. So, it's a wild ride. I wish you guys could just go. I wish I could take people out on a rough water race for 1 lap. 99.9% of you would be waving me off saying, I cannot believe that you guys do this. And it's hard to give people that perspective. I'm sure it's the same way for a motocross racer or a rally car driver, an F1 driver. I mean, I've been watching this Drive to Survive all the time, and I'm like, man, I would do anything to get in one of those for a lap, but you probably get in there and think, what are these guys doing, kind of thing.
Yeah. Man. Well, okay. I mean, so your racing schedule is full this year, but you also you run the shop at Performance Boat Center there in Lake.
Yeah. So official title, shop foreman. So, Justice at Performance Boat Center he's the service manager, and he does a great job. All the techs work their butts off. But so my day to day, like today, I was working with Greg all day. We're rigging a Performance Powerboat 360. So I was putting on hatches, putting in seats, and working with the guys from C-Deck, working with installing the cover, So everyday stuff is not as glamorous as boat racing, when you see me in the pits and I'm, got my Monster Energy drink cruising through or whatever.
Signing autographs.
Signing autographs. Yeah. So it's not that every day. But I really enjoy my job. I really love the guys that I work for and with. Mark and Brad are unbelievable. And when it comes to taking care of their employees and taking care of their customers, I mean, literally, they're like, if there's a problem, they're like, what's the right thing to do? And the right thing to do is like, so, we didn't do this and we should have take care of it, and I couldn't be more proud to have that kind of thing. But with what you're talking about with the job and everything, working with boats every day, I feel like I get one heck of an advantage over the next guy. So,
sure.
Tomorrow, even though it's going to be 38 degrees and raining, I'll be out there in a boat. I mean, I have to get it done.
Yeah.
So that being said, it's when I get into the boat at the race, I'm as calm as I can probably be. So if there was a guy that last time he was in the race or a boat was Key West or even a poker run, it was yesterday for me,
right.
Or today, So and I think that is a huge deal. Because when you're out there, you have to keep your wit about you. You have to keep your mind right, and And if you're always in boats, I really think it's an advantage. Even like coming out there with you and testing all those boats for those 2 days when we do it. I mean, it's work and it's hectic, but you get to drive 12 or 14 boats in 2 days and learn what this boat does and learn what that boat does and go. And, it's awesome. I mean, so
well,
yeah, I love my job.
Yeah, and that's to your point. Just a little while ago, we were just saying you're not just working on the same 3 boats all the time. You've got a whole variety of boats, different setups, different styles of boats that you have to figure out each and every time.
Yeah, yeah, and I really think in having that broad mindset, basically thinking of it as like a science project. I mean, so whether the guys are working on, some of them, we might be taking a stereo out and reinstalling a stereo, or, pulling the interior out, or we might be doing a full engine rebuild, or we might be rebuilding the drives, or doing a setup issue, and so a lot of re-rigging, a lot of repowers, lots of, that it's just not right, and you're like,
right.
Okay, so what do you think? And then you play almost like a doctor, or not even the doctor, the nurse beforehand, asking, what have you felt? What did you hear? When did it start happening? And then you just try to take all this. It might be as easy as the customer call and go, "Hey, it won't start." I was like, "Did you check the keel switch?" Something like that. Or did you shake the shifter? And oh man, thanks. See you later. So
right.
I'll bring you a 12-pack of beer next time I see you. You're like, yeah, thanks.
Well, the point you referenced just a little while ago is that Myrick is one of our test team drivers here at Speedboat Magazine, and once a year we round up a good handful of the West Coast performance boats, and with Myrick Coil and Bob Teague running the boats as 2 separate teams, we have the best in the industry, and they can extract the most performance and tell you exactly what the boat does and doesn't do, and you guys make a great team together. Speak to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Bob's awesome. He's probably driven thousands of more boats than I have, but for everything from little flat bottoms to, just big boats, he's got it all. So I look up to Bob a lot. I've always thought it was cool that he's taken me under his wing as like his crash test dummy, and has me waving like, holy, 183 is fast enough, or whatever. Especially, I feel for the guys that got to ride with us more than Bob or I. Like Tony last time had to ride with me. Yeah, whoever has to ride with me, and like think, man, I just met this guy 5 minutes ago, and now he's taking me 150 miles an hour in a boat he's never drove before. So, yeah, so no, it's awesome, Bob. We've got so many good stories from even the short amount. I mean, it's only been a few years that I've done it with you guys, and the stories that I have with Bob feel endless already, and it's awesome.
No, you guys work great opposite one another, and because you guys are so talented at what you do, and but yet you guys are still competitors, being offshore racers. So it's always like, okay, what'd you get out of the eliminator?
Yeah. I'm sure Bob goes over and looks at my number and one-ups me all the time, but no, I think it's cool. Like, so, a lot of the time I try to get the feedback from the whoever we're testing the boat for, whether it's Eliminator, Cobra, or Hallett, or any of your West Coast guys out there. And I'm like, does it have more? And they'll be like, well, you're gonna find out. And I think it's always neat when they use me as their way to see if it's at its max. So that, talk about a compliment to you. It's like, well, we brought these props for you because we think it's got a little bit more in it, but we want you to try it. Guys, Eliminator did that on that last, I can't even remember what it was. Yeah, the 33. And I mean, that thing was 700s. We went like 130 or something like that. I mean, it was awesome. But yeah, so I think that's always neat that, that people kind of look to my advice on how the boat's running. What'd you think? I'm like, kind of does this around here. We might want to get rid of that because a lot of people aren't going to like that. Or, man, it was on rails. It reacted to trim. I hit it up, the nose comes up. I hit the button down, it goes down. It'll go through a slalom course just fine. It's really neat. It's cool. We ran those. I think they were Howard boats, and I had never drove one before, and I was really impressed with those. And even the owner slash guy that had worked. What's his name? The guy from Howard,
Mike.
Yeah. He was, he was all about. He had that one boat that was like a cat /V, and I think it was a 25 or something like that.
It is
with a 520 maybe, and he was like he had wanted it to pull his kids around and have like a cross to where it felt like, nimble, but then would be able to go tubing or wakeboarding or whatever behind it. Right. And it's cool to listen to the guys that like designed it to see, what they were thinking at the time. Because if you just walk up to it, you're like, man, what you got here? It's kind of. Right. It's kind of different.
One of the most important things or impressive things that you've told me is that even testing one of your own race boats, you're out there feeling it and something's just not right. So you take it back to the shop and you drilled plywood to the bottom of the boat to make it perform better.
Yeah, that's drastic. Things aren't going good when you're doing that. But that's just from hanging out with guys that have had to do it before. Chris Hanley was the first time I'd ever saw it. We did it on I think it was Dave Scott's 46 Skater. They took the rear step out of it. Just boat was flighty, trying to put some wedge in it to make it fly more flat. But it's amazing doing that, how much it'll stay on. I've always liked, so we take a piece of wood or plywood and we cut it to the shape we want it and we screw it to the bottom of the boat. I mean, it sucks doing this because there's going to be a lot of work afterwards, but you're just trying to get the boat to react. And you do this and you expect to go out and, well, maybe I'm going to feel something different. And you go out and you feel this thing that's different and you're like, man, it's way faster. It really helped it, to lower this chine and, spread the spray rail out a little bit and get the boat to get up. And, we did all this and, we made the boat way faster, but we still lost. But, but we made the boat a lot more competitive. But anyway, that's talking and listening over the years and taking other guys' ideas and going with it. I mean, that's one of the great things that's what I want this podcast to be like. I want it to be like people to, like, really, that can happen, kind of thing. Yeah. You talk to Timmy Siebold and all those guys in the F1 boats. I mean, they were doing it at the race, they're right. Screwing stuff to the bottom of the boat and, just trying to get that thing going. And, the people that can do it and make their boats fast, kudos to them because it's tough. You really have to think outside the box. You have to think about what that water's doing as it's coming down the bottom of that boat. And then what's that going to do to change the water that's going to the propeller? Cause you need to get the slip factor way down there to get everything you can out of that boat. So, there's a lot of good dudes in this industry and I hope to interview a lot of them and get some of their wild stories and maybe put them on the spot and get some laughs.
Absolutely. So that is the point of this podcast is for you guys to be introduced to Myrick, and he's going to be the host. And going forward, we're hoping to do a weekly podcast available for you where Myrick sits and chews the fat and talks the shit with other racers and other manufacturers and other industry notables, or even people may not even be in the industry. But we want to just talk boats, performance boats, and with as much knowledge as Myrick has and the platform that we have as Speedboat Magazine to bring it out to you. That's what we're looking to do. So Myrick, who do you have in mind to bring on board with us?
Well, I haven't asked a whole lot of people. I've asked a few and they're all like, right on, let me know when. Right. Of course, the GOAT, Johnny Tomlinson. That's who I want to bring on there. I mean, he has such a following, and he was the one that taught me, most of what I know. And when it comes to inside the boat, didn't necessarily teach me what was going on inside the bilge that much, but he taught me drive height and weight and weight transfer and what to expect and things like that, and how to be calm and cool in the boat. I mean, this guy is like ice cold in there. You might be going as fast as you've ever been in the boat, and he'll be talking about what he did last night, kind of thing. So it's a definite calming aspect. I mean, Tyler's, he's not as calm, but he's confident and he's really good at it. So so I'm sure Tyler would come on. I haven't, I'd like to get some real comedians in here, like Vinny Diorio maybe, or,
oh boy.
I keep mentioning a lot of racers right now, but as we're going through the race season, hopefully that I can talk about, maybe we'll do it Mondays or Tuesday nights, and after everybody gets back, and we can give a recap of spend 15 minutes of the hour talking about last week's race or whatever, or get somebody to chime in, like maybe the winner gets a hey, come on the podcast, I want to hear your perspective on how you won, or whatever. I mean, I think it'd be cool to get Britt Lilly on here. I've always admired him with all of his V-bottom experience and him building a boat from scratch and rigging it and painting it and doing everything with it and going out there and being competitive all the time. I mean, of course, I'd like to get Sean Trente on here. These are not people that I've asked, but I think it'd be cool, and hopefully they might do it.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point of the podcast, is the reason we're launching this thing, and hopefully it takes hold within the industry, is to get and harness the knowledge that Myrick has, as well as other racers, other people in the industry, and other people around boating and boats and bros. That's Myrick's,
boats and bros
idea. And that, to your point earlier, your race teams and the industry, the people you work with, it's the camaraderie. That's always the number one thing, right?
Yeah. It really, it almost, when people, talk about me doing good or whatever, it's embarrassing to me, actually. I can't say that I don't like it, but it's just one of those things, like, you can shut up now, enough about me. Let's figure out what we can talk about that's funny or fun, or what we might learn something, I think it's, I think it'll be a cool deal to, just get, people on here. And I don't want it to be Myrick Coil's podcast. I want it to be, hey, we're going to get on there and we're going to talk boats, and we're going to talk about what happened, what's coming up, whether it's a poker run. Hey, who went to Tickfaw, who went to Desert Storm, anything exciting happened. I heard there were some big numbers out there at the Desert Storm shootout, anybody want to talk about it, stuff like that. So I mean, I'd like to get Tony Chiramonti from, DCB on here, of course. I've always admired him and all of his test time that he spends in all those boats out there. It's pretty, I mean, he'll tell me exactly how fast I'm going to go in one of his boats, because he knows exactly how fast it can go. So he's like, it'll go 147 at this RPM with this direction, this speed, and all this. And I doubt you'll get any more. And he's right. He's gotten everything. He's gotten everything out of it already. So, I mean, and then, of course, icons, maybe Randy Sism, Peter, from Skater, who knows? I mean, I think when I think about all the people that I've been lucky enough to be friends / people in the industry, I feel very fortunate to be here this long and know enough people. And whether we bought a part from them, because we bought a lot of parts from Trente, Latham Marine, all those guys. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of information about boating that is in their brain that has never been published.
No, absolutely. And, a lot of times when we're in the pits and you're talking, there's a crowd that tends to form, because they just want to hear, kind of like be a fly on the wall and listen to the insight of somebody that has so much experience and knowledge like yourself, like a Randy Sism, like a Tony Chermonte, like a Sean Torrente. So, hopefully this podcast takes off. Myrick Coil is your host. I am just kind of playing moderator.
Yeah, whatever, Ray. We know we all like to see your smiling face on there. Yeah.
If you feel like requesting additional guests that you'd like to see on here,
give us a list.
Email me at ray@speedboat.com. And if you like this podcast, be sure to like, follow, and rate it so that we can gain some traction and get bigger. Myrick, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to more episodes with you. And
Boats and Bros.
Boats and Bros. This has been Ray Lee with Speedboat Magazine with Myrick Coil, host of Boats and Bros.